Hey everybody, it's Mr. Mike, and today we're here to talk about winter waterfowl. And at this point, you guys already know how much I like birds. We've done owling, we've done some spring bird migration, and now we're talking about waterfowl. Waterfowl is a fantastic group of birds to look at and observe and study, especially in the wintertime. There are a lot of different areas throughout Erie County that you can see these waterfowl. Now when we say waterfowl, we're not referring to all water birds. We're referring specifically to ducks, geese, swans, maybe some coots and some loons and different things in there, and they usually tend to be a little bit larger, not as small as your shorebirds and things like that. Now, what's important about these birds is this habitat here in Erie County, pretty much all throughout Erie County, is crucial habitat for these birds throughout the wintertime. This is where some of them, like the mallard, find their mate for the next year. Birds like tundra swans, this is where they overwinter. This is their place. They love it here. There's a good bit of food for them to find out on the bay, and they're able to stay active pretty much all winter long. And whether we like it or not, it's good for the economy. We have lots of hunters that hunt ducks. We have a lot of birders coming out looking for birds. So when people are coming here to hunt and observe and look for birds and different things, they're spending money here in our county, which is always a good thing too. Today while we're hanging out, you're going to need two specific things. Number one is you're going to need binoculars, and number two, you're going to need a sharp eye. If you listen, you can hear a belted kingfisher back there. Not a waterfowl bird, but it's still a pretty cool bird to see. He's up there hanging out. He's probably hunting this water here, trying to find some small fish and things. Now, you hear that rattle back there? He's probably interested in what I'm doing. Right now, what we're doing, we're being a little bit too loud for there to be waterfowl here, so we're going to start here talking a little bit about what we need and what we're going to do, and then we're going to head out and go to some of my secret spots and some really cool spots that I usually tend to see and spot waterfowl. Alright? Some of the things you guys are going to need while we're out today. Number one is a must-have is you're probably going to need binoculars, because sometimes these birds are going to be really far away. If you have one or know someone who might have one, it's important for you to maybe try to find a spotting scope or hook up with a friend who's got one, or if your grandpa's got one, somebody, because a spotting scope is going to help you see those birds that are a little bit further away. This one right here is one of the park ones, and if I'm standing here looking out into the water and I can see a duck over there, so I know it's a duck, I know it's not a geese, I know it's not a swan, what I need to do is get a little bit closer. This spotting scope allows me to get a little bit closer. So we talked about why waterfowl are important to this area. Now let's talk about why this area is important to waterfowl. During peak migration times and throughout the winter, the Sandusky Bay can house more than 1 million different waterfowl. Now that's incredible considering how large the bay is, and we only pretty much operate on the east side of it, but this is all crucial habitat for these birds. Now it's crucial because there's shallow water that these birds can go down and find food and kind of feel safe in, with the exception of from hunters. So while we're looking for these birds today, it's always important to be cautious of hunters, but it's also important to be observant and kind of look over the birds a little bit. Now, when we're traveling from different places, you guys might be in the car with me. I might pull up the camera and talk to you guys from a car, because some of the spots it's easier to just pull your car up and look out, which might be convenient for you if you're not a big fan of the cold in the wintertime. But some of the places I'm going to go, you got to make a little trek out towards the water and look out for some birds. So as we're going, if you get too cold and decide you don't want to do any of these birds, that's fine, because you're going to be hanging out with me checking them out. Hopefully we'll get to see some cool birds. Fingers crossed for a few rare birds. I could use them this year. But while we're out, let's make sure that we're being respectful of private property. As always, with any time you're birding, you can always bird in the parks as long as they're not closed for hunting. But you don't want to go on anybody's property. If you see a pond where there's a bird or something like that, be respectful. Be mindful, and also don't go onto somebody's property without asking. The coolest part about the bay and some other areas across the bay is when it gets real cold and there's moving water, like right around here, the water that's moving in and out, most of the water is going to freeze up and it's going to force these waterfowl into these small areas where there's open water. Now, that makes it a birder's paradise or a photographer's paradise, because then the birds are kind of trapped in this area. Not trapped to where they're going to get harmed, but trapped in the small pools of water, and then you're able to get a little bit of a closer look at them. And that's usually how we spot these rare birds. Now, it hasn't gotten extremely cold yet to where we've had a complete freeze over, but if you look across the bay here, the whole bank over there, where this water fluctuates up and down between 1 and 2 feet sometimes. So if you look across the bay there, the bank over there, all that shallower water is actually frozen. So this is open right here where we are, and it's a little bit deeper. And we may come back here in a few days and this water's way, way down, and you can see the bottom of the ground here, or the muck underneath. So it just depends on the day, also depends on the weather and the wind and what's going on. All right, guys, so let's get going. Let's go start out in a different spot, and we'll come back here and check it out some other time. Usually when you come out here early in the morning, this particular section of the bay is loaded with Canada geese, mallards. I've gotten a few cackling geese. Check this one out, which we'll talk about those here in a bit. And some other birds, northern shovelers, gadwall, more of your common things that you find here. But we're going to travel to some other places now, and we're going to go to Castalia Duck Pond, which is a spring that is always open. It's always a good spot to bird, and there's places to park, and you don't even have to get out of your car if you hate the cold. We're also going to travel to Wyandotte Metro Park, and we're going to go out to the Barnes Extension and look out that way. That's always a good place. We're going to go over towards the Chaussee, the Cedar Point Chaussee, and check out some waterfowl through there. And then we're also going to travel to some other small ponds that are open and we can get to from the public. All right? All right, let's get going, guys. So we're here at Castalia Quarry Duck Pond, and as you can see behind me, there's lots of birds out on this water, like I had mentioned. Really easy place to start for beginners. If you've never ID'd waterfowl before, or you're looking to, this is a great spot to do so. And all you have to have here is your binoculars. And if you can't see a bird all the way on the other side, there's another parking space all the way on the other side there. Now these birds, the reason that they come here and is you don't see any ice is because this is naturally spring fed. So that water tends to stay warm, and if you get over here when it's real cold, you can hear the widgeons out there squeaking, some gadwall too. You see both divers and dabblers over here. So dabbling ducks are ones that turn upside down to feed, and then your divers are clearly birds that dive down into the water. Now, you're going to see a lot of different birds here. Always a lot of Canada geese out here. You have occasionally can get some cackling geese, but right now, from not even pulling up my binoculars, I can hear northern shovelers, American widgeons. I can see some of those. I can see mallards. There's some gadwall out there. So there's lots and lots of birds here, and this is a great place to start for beginners, like I said. So if you get a chance to stop out here, like I said, if it's too cold for you or you don't like being out in the weather, you can sit in your car and do it right from your car. It's a great place to start. You can ask your mom or your dad or somebody to stop you here and look around. All right, so we made it out here to the bay, Eagle Point, overlooking Steinem Wildlife Area. There's a widgeon out there with the white head, and there's a bunch of gadwall. Now normally these birds would have taken off by now, but we had some fresh snowfall last night, and it's allowed me to stay pretty stealthy coming through here. Now they've heard me, but not as well as they would have had I been crunching leaves through here, so we're going to try to move a little closer. So there's your gadwall. These guys can be tough sometimes to ID, especially if you're far away like this, because they look like from a distance. Oh, here comes a mallard. It's going to scoot. There you go. There's a drake mallard. So that's what we would call the male. The female would be called a hen. Now, those gadwalls back there, they look a lot like female ducks of other species from a distance, but then once you see them up close, like this one, not this one specifically, but other ones, then you're able to kind of differentiate between that and other ones, because a lot of female ducks tend to have a brownish color to them. Once you're actually able to see the male gadwall, you're able to see they have a puffy head, a black tail, some silver feathers there towards the end of their tail, and then you're able to tell it doesn't really look like a female unless you're from a really far distance.
So there's a bunch of mallards in there, and then just past them out to where it's not frozen anymore, some gadwall. Saw a pie-billed grebe kind of moving around the pack in there. And then there was also some ruddy ducks. As I told you, once it gets cold like this, they come in to the shallowest parts. And as you can see, right back here is all frozen. And they're all out there, moving around, kind of adjusting themselves because they see me now. And then the blue jays will be here in a second to snitch on me too. That blue jay didn't disappoint. There they all go. You hear them canking? So blue jays aren't just a precursor for snitching on owls and hawks. They'll snitch on you too. And as I said, these birds out here are real skittish. All right, there's the observation deck. It's all underwater. Here's the bay. So we move to our right here. Just there we start seeing some ducks. So move over. They're about 250 strong. Gadwall and some mallards mixed in there. A couple pie-billed grebes in there. So I'd mentioned if we get over here early enough, the sun's just about to come up, and you can see there's tons of Canada geese in here. And they know I'm here now, so they're starting to move. So we might get them on a fly off here. I did like a preliminary scan. I didn't see any cackling geese in this small little flock. On the other side there are some mallards. What tends to happen with these, the geese kind of just hang out here overnight, and they'll feed on the grass and stuff, sometimes on the bank over here. And then the other ducks, like the mallards and the gadwalls, they're dabblers, as we had talked about, so they feed with their bum up in the air. And when they feed, they're going to go for shallower water. They're going to tend to be in the most shallow water they can find, so it's a little bit easier for them to feed, and the divers are going to tend to be in that deeper water. So the ducks you see on the other side of the bay there, or the other side of the bank there, are mallards. I think there's a few gadwalls, and I might have saw a bufflehead in there, just kind of sprinkled in, maybe one or two, but we'll get a little bit of a closer look here in a minute. So, but like I said, those ducks, like long-tailed ducks, mergansers usually, they tend to be in deeper waters because they like to dive down and find food in the vegetation and in the muck and things. So we managed to get them all stirred up. Come back right towards us now. We got a great shot of getting pooped on, so be prepared if I make a gross sound. See that bird way over there? That is a long-tailed duck. So this bird was found here 2 days ago, and there was actually a second one, but they've both been sticking around. So here's a closer shot of that bird and what they look like. These are those divers. We're over here at the Huron Boat Basin, and this is an excellent place to spot those divers and other ducks, and other waterfowl, not just ducks, because the boats get things stirred up and moving around and allow these guys to hunt a little better. And every once in a while you'll watch a gull swoop down and try to kind of jump in on him while he's like trying to feed. But long-tailed ducks are some of the most beautiful ducks, but he's really, really far over there, really far up, and you see he just dove down under the water. He said he's a diver. Might get lucky and see if he pops up somewhere. There's a gull. Gull. 2 more gulls. Where'd you go? Oh, seems he's disappeared.
Alright everybody, we're at our last stop here at Wyandotte Metro Park, and I'm excited because this is one of my favorite places to bird. We're preemptively being as quiet as we can, that's why we're not on the observation deck yet. But so far what I can see out there, I see tons of gadwall, which we've seen. I'm seeing some mergansers, which hopefully we can get a better look at once I swap the lenses out. But the trick is here is being quiet. So to my west, this way, would be other bay properties, Eagle Point Metro Park, Joseph Steinem Wildlife Area, some other areas that we have properties. And then to my left, this bay feeds right into Sheldon's Marsh State Nature Preserve, which is also an excellent place to find waterfowl, and they're not as skittish there. We saw a little bit of gulls. We saw the long-tailed ducks at the Huron Boat Basin. That was awesome. That's a really good find. I didn't find that bird. I just took a shot this morning to see if maybe it was still there from over the weekend, and we were lucky enough to see that it was. There are other birds, waterfowl and things like we had mentioned, tundra swans and all those birds. All those birds are critical, not just to our region, but this habitat as well is very, very important to these birds. And it's important that we protect it and conserve it so that these birds have a place to overwinter, find a mate, and go back to their normal breeding grounds. So now I'm going to get a little bit quieter. I have my spotting scope out, and we're going to observe and see if we can find anything else.
Alright, so we've moved a bit closer, and ooh, you know, that belted kingfisher. Most of what I'm getting so far, still the gadwalls that are up close feeding in this dead lotus. They like to get in there and tuck away, and then they can't be seen. But we're also we got tons of gulls out here that will probably scare up once we hop out onto the deck. On the other side, I definitely saw some hooded mergansers and a few other. We're going to get up here on the deck and see if we can see anything else.
So Wyandotte is one of my favorite places to look for waterfowl because it's kind of secluded. I'm a big spotting scope person because sometimes these birds are really skittish, especially on the bay, and I'd mentioned that before. But it's kind of secluded, not a lot of people know about it. Everybody wants to go to Sheldon's, which is an awesome park, love it, as I've mentioned before, but not a lot of people know. Sometimes I like to get out here onto this peninsula when it's not as muddy as it is, and when I don't have all this camera equipment, so then I can really see on the other side and see what birds are hanging out over there. All the way on the other side over there, we have a couple American widgeon, which we had seen at Castalia. We have some ringneck ducks, which is good. So I'm a liar. When I said there were a few ringneck ducks, I underestimated because I kept turning to my left here, and you can't see it, but there's a big line of ducks that basically stretch from the chaussee all the way along that peninsula out there, and from about where my arm is until probably the other side of my spotting scope is about 300 to 500, somewhere in that area, ringneck ducks. That's pretty impressive. And as I had mentioned, IDing these birds, the males usually are pretty easy, with the exception of a greater and a lesser scaup, and maybe a few other ones that get a little tough, but the females is where it's really, really tough. Like when I was at Castalia, check out this female redhead. Now I was confused for a second, and then finally I saw that little tip right there of a blue bill, and I was like, pointing me in the right direction. It had to either be a canvasback or that redhead. The weird thing is I haven't seen any tundra swans out here. Not that there aren't any, but hopefully at some point. And what I like about them is I don't need the spotting scope to find them. They're monsters. Alright everybody, that's about all I have for you guys for today. So I hope everybody has a happy holidays and enjoys yourself, and get out there and find those birds. Pound it!